Hello, friends.
So it's almost March, and my girls are still singing Christmas songs. But a quarter of the year is nearly done. At the end of March, that's it. And I'm not trying to rush you, but I'm just making a point that it's spinning, it's moving so quick. I'm glad, on one hand, that spring is near. I love spring. I love the flowers. I love the warmer days, the longer days, the brighter days. I love all of that. But I'm also still wondering exactly what it's going to take to make some of my dreams and assignments go to the next level. Some of you may be in the same position, and sometimes I get a little anxious and catch myself pacing back and forth. I saw a hilarious post of a little boy and girl on a roller coaster not so long ago. The girl was having a ball. Her face was happy and full of laughter, but the little boy next to her was clenching so tightly. He was holding on for dear life. Poor baby. The text above their heads was something like, "How life with Jesus feels sometimes." I keep going back to this text, to this post, I keep remembering this post and just giggling as his little face was so intense. You just want to hug him, you feel bad. But I also can relate because it's the truth. Sometimes you do feel that way. There are some nail-biting moments of suspense that you didn't know that you may not be a suspense lover, and you're gonna have suspense either way. Because the truth of the matter is that it's not always easy to believe before you see. But after experiencing that kind of peace that comes from having that assurance and that conviction that you know this is the right path, you don't want to be swayed every time a little wind comes your way, where you often become so discouraged that you just want to quit and abandon everything you've done, which would be easy to do. You start coexisting with your negative thoughts and just being friends with them. And then the next thing you know, you're saying things that are completely counterproductive. Accidentally. I heard the pastor talk about persevering and remaining faithful in troubled and tough times. Then I went on to hear his text about Daniel and his three friends being in the fiery furnace. I went on to hear that same text the following day. Like, I keep hearing it, and I know it's no coincidence. So the quick version of that Daniel story is that their faith led them to say to the king that they wouldn't bow to worship him or his statue, no matter what. This got them thrown into the furnace, but they left the furnace unscathed and soon found themselves being promoted. So I thought about Daniel and his friends, thinking for sure they must have had roller coaster moments too. At least 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I can just imagine them repeating to themselves over and over, okay, our God is able. He will do it. As they walk toward the furnace. And can you imagine that? But faith comes by hearing. We very often tend to believe what we've heard, for better or for worse. So if Daniel's declaration was instrumental in leading him to victory, then I'm thinking at this time in my life, I too should be defining, declaring, and repeating what I expect to see in my life. These are the times, these are the moments when you probably have some disguised opportunities. It feels like it's an opportunity for me, and probably for you too, to define the era. It's still very new, but if you're anything like me, then you can look back over your life and see things, situations, and people and scenarios that lingered way too long because you allowed it for way too long. Well, that MO is over. This is a great time for intentionality. So, as for me, I intend to define this ripe with potential new era we're in by doing 4 things. Step 1, being quiet. Once distractions have cleared, it becomes pretty easy for me, usually, to recognize what's bothering me and what needs work. Step 2, for me personally, this is the most important step. I ask God for wisdom and guidance. Then I try to pay attention for the answer because it can come in any way. Step 3, then I write. I write down what I know at that moment, whether it's my one clear goal or my one passionate scripture. Then I write everything that's flowing from that point. I try to organize it, but save space for more, always expecting that God will help me learn something new, but also being aware that you can start defining your era right now without having all the pieces to the puzzle. Step 4. So once you find one step in the right direction that you can make now, go for it. All this makes me recall my New Year's resolution. That's when things began to shift hastily. I can absolutely relate to the little boy on the roller coaster. Tense, but still holding on. The furnace is not fun. It's not fun, but the question is, how do you want to come out of the furnace? Because we're all going to have a furnace moment. So the question is, how do you want to come out of the furnace? It's up to you to define that. And by taking a stand, Daniel defined his next era. His heart, his mind, his mouth, and his body all agreed that God would deliver. And then his outcome had no other choice except to agree as well. So, if you feel like you're in the fire, this is probably an awesome time to define these coming years in this new decade and this new era. Define your era. This might be a golden opportunity. All right. Bye, guys. God bless.